What's up guys, today we're going to be taking a look at the Marvel Legends Spider-Man Retro Series Sandman action figure. He's coming in straight cases of 6 action figures per case, and he's got this brilliant retro card design with the very eye-catching Spider-Man branding and logo at the top, as well as a striking character artwork by the side. The figure's kept in a plastic bubble. He's got a swappable head, 2 sand effects that would slide on his forearm, as well as a sand mace and a huge sand fist. Moving over to the back of the packaging, there's the very old school instructions over here on the left, more of the same artwork on the right, description of the character as well as product information at the bottom of the card. So now let's go ahead and get him open. And to unbox him, I sliced the plastic bubble off the vintage card. The alternate head sculpt has pretty good sculpting. It is cast in a flesh tone plastic, as you can see from the bottom on the inside of the head. This head sculpt shows Sandman kind of getting blasted and then reforming himself. The part of his head that's got damaged has got a coarse sand texture to it. It's painted in a sand color, and there's also another layer of light brown paint just to make that texture come out even better. You can see how that sand interfaces with the rest of his head with his brown hairstyle, as well as on the front part of the face you can see that sand forming his right eye, where there's also a hit of white paint. The rest of his face is just a neutral stern look. He's got brown eyebrows as well as brown eyes. Of course, this alternate head sculpt also pops on easily onto his body. Next up, he also comes with 2 sand sleeves. These are cast in a pale yellow plastic and then given some paint on the outside using a dry brush technique. This brings out the texture of the coarse sand and the way that it's flowing out of his hands into his weapons. His weapons are likewise cast in that same light yellow plastic with also that dry brush treatment to give it that really nice sand texture. The mace has got different sizes of spikes, so that makes it look quite interesting. And his left fist is huge and comes with spikes on the knuckles as well. In order to fit the sleeves onto his arms, the larger one fits onto his left arm, and you can see that from the inscriptions on the inside of the sleeve. Do also note that the rounded end of the sleeve is where you plug the weapon attachments into. And this is what he looks like fully equipped with the weapon attachments. The pegs for the weapons don't actually have any articulation, so they only swivel on his wrist. And since he's got a specific left fist, that means this weapon can only be used on his left side. And since the mace isn't sculpted for any particular arm, you can of course decide to pop it onto his left arm instead. Onto the sculpt of the figure, he's mostly reuse of the motorcycle Punisher, which is the same body as the Netflix Luke Cage. His new parts are of course his head sculpt as well as his arms, which do come with a pinless design. Taking a closer look at the sculpt of the figure, he's sculpted with a sneering expression on his face, staring intently at his enemy and gritting his teeth. The paint applications on his face are decent, but not as fantastic as the digital printing that we've seen on the more recent releases like Hercules and Shriek. I do appreciate that the paint on his mouth is very cleanly and neatly applied. He's also got his trademark horizontal pattern hairstyle, and that's painted in brown all the way down to the back. And you can see all that clear horizontal sculpting going on. It's just a little strange that the brown paint on his hair ends up having a very glossy look, so he looks like he has oily hair. I will point out one thing that I find really odd, which is that his default head sculpt has a more aggressive expression on his face, compared to the alternate head sculpt which is reforming from sand and probably in the heat of battle. It would have made a little more sense if his default head sculpt was more neutral and his alternate head sculpt had that sneering expression instead. His torso and his arms are cast in a dark green plastic with the light green stripes painted on. His torso as well as his arms come with sculpting for wrinkles and the fabric of his t-shirt. What's really interesting is that when you pull his torso backwards, the stripes all still line up, so that's really impressive. The stripes are also painted on really cleanly and neatly all over the front and the back of the torso. But strangely, those stripes don't actually line up on the middle of his back. But that's just a small distraction on the back of the figure. On to his forearms. They are painted with flesh tone paint, but it doesn't look like the paint is applied sufficiently. There's a clear difference in the skin tone from his forearm to his fist, and you can see some of that green plastic from below peeking out. Onto his lower body, it's mostly cast in a brown plastic with texturing for the jeans. It's also slightly distracting that the product batch number is printed closer to the front of the inside of the thigh. And onto his feet, he is cast wearing a pair of black boots. For articulation, his head is on a ball hinge, so it swings 360. You can also get some tilt left as well as right. He's able to look down quite a fair bit as well as up. That's quite a good range. Swivel hinge at the shoulders, and it feels detented as you swivel his arms 360. It also hinges outwards quite a good bit, and that hinge is quite stiff as well. He's got an upper bicep swivel, and it's kind of gummy out of the packaging, so you just got to take note of that. Pinless double jointed elbows, so that's pretty good range. Swivel hinge at the wrist that goes 360, as well as articulating inwards as well as outwards. He's got a mid-torso ab crunch, so he goes forward just a little bit, as well as backward one click. He's got a waist swivel, so he swivels 360. Ball joints at the hips, so they go outward, as well as forward and backward. Upper thigh swivel, so that goes 360. Double jointed knees, so that's quite a good range. He's also got a good bit of ankle tilt upwards, as well as downwards. And his ankles also pivot outwards, as well as inwards. He's a stable and sturdy figure that's pretty fun to pose. The alternate head sculpt as well as the weapon attachments really add to a lot of options you can have with posing him. And he looks really badass when you got him fully decked out with all his weapon attachments. Here's a quick comparison with the Toy Biz Sandman and the Absorbing Man Build-A-Figure. Compared to the Toy Biz Sandman, I do prefer the newer version because it looks more proportionate in sculpting. I also prefer the new Sandman versus the Absorbing Man Build-A-Figure, which was used as a basis for the Sandman Build-A-Figure that I do not have. I prefer a smaller Sandman that's closer to a regular sized human being, and also because he comes in his powered down version where you can display him without his sand weapons. And just in case you were wondering, the Sandman Build-A-Figure weapon attachments do not fit onto the new figure, simply because the pegs are just too large. Size-wise, Sandman stands at 6 3/4 inches, or about 17 centimeters. Here he is compared to the retro Spider-Man. He's larger than Pizza Spider-Man, so that's a plus for me. And here he is also beside the Rhino Build-A-Figure. Here he is with Venom and Green Goblin, Wolverine and Iron Man. He's bigger than the G.I. Joe Classified series. And here he is with some Star Wars Black series. Sandman comes with a good bunch of accessories, and I like that I have the option of displaying him in his powered up or powered down looks. The weapon attachments are made of solid plastic and heavy and might be a little bit challenging to pose. In most parts, the paint applications are clean, and ultimately this figure feels fun in hand and is a great representation of an iconic Spider-Man villain. Please like and share this video, let me know what you think in the comments below, and subscribe to my channel for more toy reviews. Also, don't forget to check out my new TikTok account in the description below. Thanks for watching, take care and stay safe.